Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to the speaker series for the Lee Historical Society. And tonight we have Gary Allen, a longtime Lee resident and a founding member of the Society. He was previous president of the Society, and beginning last week, he's now the returning president of the Society.
Yeah. Thank you.
Among the many society hats he wears, he also chairs the finance committee, serves on the program committee, maintains the society website, and volunteers time on our veterans project as we continue to try and gather the names of all the veterans from Lee. So he's a busy man, but he's always smiling. We're glad to introduce him tonight as he talks about the history of the Lee Fire Department. So with that, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ellen. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to see you all here. Some of you may think, I've seen this before. And in fact, if you were around in 2006, you have seen this before. I first put this together back then. That was the 250th anniversary of the fire department. So I put this together, but I've updated it. There's some new information in here, and it's a fascinating story anyway. And I noticed kind of in the back of the room, I think there's several firefighters back there, and I'm delighted that they joined us tonight. The Lee Historical Society, that's me. And if you know something about the fire department and you'd like to add it to our history, I'd be glad to find the things that you know, and we'll add them in. It's a work in progress. I don't know how many of you recognize those uniforms. That's our Lee Fire Department. That's the 250th anniversary, and the two young fellows holding the flag, the banner in front, have historical costumes. That's what they used to look like in the good old days. So the fire department was on parade back on their 250th anniversary. This is the one and only fire hall in town. On the left-hand side, that's how it was originally built in 1912, round doors. And the center of the building was actually a grand staircase going up to the second floor where there are meeting rooms. The right-hand side, the right-hand version of this is what the fire department looks like currently. And one of the very interesting things about this, those doors are just barely wide enough to get the fire trucks in because the fire company had the trucks built to their own specifications, so they get through the door. It's very, very close quarters for the trucks that are there now. This might be a good place to stick in. The fire department and the town is working on a new plan for a new fire department. They had an introductory session showing everyone what the new fire department would look like. It's magnificent. It'll hold all the trucks that you could ever want. It takes care of the police, takes care of the fire. It provides meeting rooms. It's a grand plan for a new facility. And that new facility will be generally where the Arioldi building is, across the street from the post office. I think it'll be wonderful. And we'll have this lovely old building to put to some other use. Looking forward to that. So back when we got started into all this fighting fire stuff, this was the apparatus, a bucket. These buckets are quite big. They're leather. And everybody in every house had to have a bucket. So when there was a fire, everybody grabbed their bucket and they ran out to the fire and they put the bucket brigade together to get the water onto the fire. Now, if you were in the bucket brigade, you could stand maybe 4 or 5 feet from the fire and throw your water on the fire, and then go get another one. and the person standing 4 or 5 feet from the fire would throw their water on. Pretty hard to do. About 2 gallons of water every toss, and about 4 feet between you and the fire. Now, one of the things that you had to do was get some water to put onto the fire. If you look really closely, you might see there's a red dot here, red dot here, red dot there. That's the park, the church, school. There were 8 of these on these locations here, cisterns. And one of them was recently uncovered near St. Mary's Church, and it was in fine condition. They built these things to hold, I think, about 400 or 500 gallons of water. And one of the members of the society did the research on this and found this map where all of those things are located. This map is, of course, I'm sure you all recognize this right away. Oop, not that button, Gary. Okay. That's Goose Pond. So that's up at the top of the hill where all of these are mills. The Gilmore Mill, the Benton, the Baird, the May and Rogers, the Chaffee, the Hamilton. So the water comes down here and it powers the mills. Where are all of those mills? In East Lee, not in Lee. So the first company was actually formed in East Lee primarily because there were a lot of places that could burn, and it would be a big loss if those mills burned. And one of the things that happened over time, East Lee bought an engine, Lee bought an engine, other places bought an engine, and generally speaking, right after they bought the engine, they had a big fire. So the witch, the water witch, which was the first major engine that the Lee department got, was in 1956, and the center of town burned that winter. It's coincidental. I don't think there's cause and effect there. I think it's just coincidental. But that first fire that they fought with the water witch was very, very difficult because of the cold weather. Okay, the fire company in Eastleigh was the Forest engine. And then in Lee itself, there's a tale in the Gleaner that says the guys in Lee couldn't let Lee one-up them. So they got a bunch of money together and bought another fire engine. Oop, there we go, pushing the wrong button again. That is the water witch. This is the May steamer. The fire company here in Lee got its name from a woman who said, "Why don't you call it the water witch?" I don't know if anybody knows for sure why, but everyone said, "Sure, we are the water witch company." So there were about 46 people who got together in that original company. They raised about $1,500, and they had almost 100 people, volunteers. And the water witch came to Lee in September. The fire engine that came to East Lee was a hand pumped. It got here in the spring, and the water witch got here in the fall of '56. There's a very good history of the water witch company. I know the name of the author, and I'll share it with you as soon as it comes back again. But There are copies down at the fire department. There are copies in the library, and we have some in the collection of the Historical Society. The water witch was able to shoot water 200 feet. So it's not 4 feet between you and the fire, 1 gallon at a time. You can stand back 200 feet and put a lot more water onto the fire using the witch. That's a much nicer picture of the water witch. And again, this was taken on the anniversary, and there was a muster. We'll talk a little bit more about the muster. But that's the water witch in all its glory. The one thing I wonder about this, I wonder if I would be tall enough to reach, to reach up here. This, you have one team of men on this side, they pull it down, the other side goes up, and then you pull your side down. So you've got 2 teams of men, but I don't know if I'd be tall enough to actually make that work. There were several fire departments. We started with the Forest Company in East Lee, the Water Witch Company, or the Water Witch is a surviving fire company here in Lee. There was one called Reliance, and this is a picture of the Reliance, and they're all dressed up with their fancy little poofs on their uniforms. This picture is an excellent picture because it tells you everybody who's in the picture. That's a very, very nice thing to have. You could actually figure out who all those people are. But so we had the Forest Water Witch Reliant, this one. There was a Vigilant. They had a chemical engine. Basically, a chemical reaction was what provided to get the water out. And then there were 2 companies that were just hose companies. The hoses were originally leather when we got them. And the leather worked pretty good, but you had a 5-inch piston on the witch. Okay, so the witch could put 5 inches of water out. Well, at the end of the hose was a 1-inch thing, and it was very common for the hoses to blow up, particularly when we took them to a competition. This was a muster. One of the really interesting things about these musters and just the competitions between the different fire departments, that first engine cost, what did we say, about $1,500, I think? They took the witch to one of these competitions and they won $200. So those competitions provided a lot of the money that the fire companies could use. This one from the 2006, if any of you got to see the muster, it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Once upon a time, we took the Water Witch to a competition, and somehow or another, a rock got in. And of course, what the rock did was went to the hose end and stopped the water. So we lost that competition. This is something that you could do Thursday night. The fire company is having an open house at the old fire station across the way. And if you go, you'll get to see this particular display case. So at the open house, you can see some of these things. There's some hats. Stop doing that, Gary. There's that uniform. Do you see the lapels? That's what the 2 young fellows were wearing in the parade that we saw at the very beginning of this. Okay. The list of fire trucks hasn't changed a great deal in the last 10 years or so. I believe this is the same list from the last time I gave the presentation, but we had these 6 trucks and 2 that are in station number 2. Station number 2 is East Lee. And so we've got pretty good size. I'm sorry? South Lee, not East Lee. Oh, all right. Just because you're from East Lee, I have. Yes, thank you for that. I really don't mind it. If I get it wrong, please correct me, and then everybody will know the right answer. Okay. One of the things when I put this thing together, I said, gee, this seems kind of strange. You've got an engine number 1 has 750 gallons in its tank, and it pumps 1,500 gallons. So what's that mean? In 2 minutes, your water is going to be all gone. Fortunately, the chief corrected me. It could pump 1,500 gallons, but it doesn't. It pumps 100 or 50 or whatever they need to fight the fire. So they last a lot longer than you might think if you look at this. Okay. This is the chief's hat, and it was worn by Herbert Orienti. Pretty fancy looking hat. And I don't know if each of the chiefs get their own version of the hat or if the hat passes from one to the other. But here are all the chiefs from the beginning of the department. And in fact, tonight, Ryan Brown is sitting in the back row. And Ron Driscoll. Ron Driscoll is the champion fire chief. He held that position longer than anyone else. Some of these names are well known in the history. Wellington Smith, Thomas Oman, FMPs, these were people well known around town, and they did a lot to contribute to the good of the town. We have 10 full-time firefighters now, and there are 9 of them who are paramedics. There are also 47 volunteer firemen in the fire department. And when we get the new fire department built, those folks who are full-time will have a place to sleep in the station when the new station is done. So this is the 267 years of service that the fire department has given to Lee. We started with the buckets. We moved along to mechanical pumps. Some were horse-drawn. Some you had to get the men onto the front of it, and they had to pull it themselves. And now we have a good fleet of trucks that are in the fire department. These slides and the things that I've been talking about during the talk are part of the history of the department. There is also this, there's a couple of things in this that weren't covered in this speech, but they're available here if you'd like to have them. And we have some other things about the history of the fire department. So the principal reason for giving this talks was to say thank you to the fire department. They've been here for a long time. They've done a lot of good service to the town, and we certainly want to appreciate them and their work. A question?
Where do they keep the horses?
In the academy building. I'm sorry, I don't know. When they got one of these, someone built a place to keep the horses. It may have been on Academy Street. I just kind of threw that out there. It might be in one of my several books of notes. Yes.
Gary, the word is that the horses were actually, the town didn't own their own horses. And they would stay in the livery stable over on School Street. And the first team to get to the station was the team that got paid for pulling the apparatus. Everybody else got second place thank yous.
Huh. See, if you just ask the right person, there's all kinds of information out there that you can have. That is, again, the chief. But I think he whispered to Ron to find that out. Yeah. Okay. You may notice this patch. You know, the first thing I had was the round red circle, and that's on all the trucks. This is apparently, I believe the story is another official patch, and I think one or two of the folks here tonight have a patch like this on their side. I think it's very pretty. But that's the information that I have. Again, there is an open house at the fire station on Thursday. I think it's from 4 to 6, 4 to 7. And I would encourage you to stop in. There's interesting things to see there. And there's a lot of interesting guys to meet, too. So, yes.
Speaking of guys, has the Lee Fire Department ever had any women firefighters?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The first woman was in what year? 82, maybe?
Yeah. The question is, do we have women firefighters? And the answer is yes. We have since 1982. Last time I took a ride in the ambulance, which was fire department personnel, there was one woman and one man.
So we currently, right now, have 4 women. 2 are volunteers and 2 are career firefighters. And the consensus amongst the gang back here is the first woman came on board in about 1986.
Okay. The first woman came to the department in 1986, and there still are 4 there. Other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Where's the Santa Claus on the building?
Where is the Santa Claus on the building?
And is that going to continue?
I don't know what happened. Yeah, it's up in the attic, but it's pretty faded.
But it glows.
Yeah.
We still put the lights on the firehouse, and many of them the same lights that have been on since 1939, maybe before. We're not quite sure. But the Santa Claus is pretty much rotted out. He's done brand new and made of plastic.
So besides fighting fires, they also decorate the town, and we appreciate. I love those red lights on the fire station. It's lovely.
They're just as old as Santa.
Just as old as Santa. Yes. Oh.
Question for the fireman here. I used to babysit for Freddie Brown's kids, and I think I remember every time the whistle went off, they used to live on Center Street. I had to go to a chart and figure out how many whistles I had to translate to what part of town the fire was in.
Yep.
And then I had to call firemen that must have lived too far away to hear the whistle. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything.
There was a series of whistle signals when there was a fire. And you're speaking of a couple of young fellows who had to interpret the whistle signals into where was the fire and who was going to fight it too.
Well, I had to call the fireman that must have lived too far away to hear the whistle go off or something.
Uh-huh.
Call the fireman on the list.
Yep. Yeah, before telephones and radios and all the electronics, you needed another method for signaling the volunteers to come and fight the fire. Sure.
What do firefighters do
besides fighting fires? I know back in the 80s, my son locked himself in the bathroom, and I don't know if I called the fire or the police, but the fire department came.
Well, that's an interesting question. It's a multifaceted answer. So aside from fighting fires, they're plumbers, they're lawyers, they're mechanics, because the bulk of our firefighting force are our citizen firefighters. Traditionally, anything that goes wrong, society has always turned to the fire department for an answer. So we have hazardous materials technicians on the fire department now, but we also we do about everything you can think of except for go up in trees for cats. We don't actually do that. Yeah. But yeah, we do medical calls. If you lock your keys out of the house, we can sometimes help you with that. We go to car accidents. If your cellar floods, we can help pump the water out. We do all kinds of things, not just fight fires.
I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to know if I missed something.
Yeah, but you know, we do the actual fire part. We do about 230 fire calls a year. I haven't run the numbers, but as the first of the month for emergency responses, we're about 1,440 emergency responses with all the different things that we do.
That's so far this year, you've done 1,400 calls.
Yes.
Is that, are those
1,500 today?
Are those statistics published in the annual report of the town?
Yes, they are.
They are. I thought I'd seen them somewhere. So, once again, the main purpose of this was to express appreciation for the fire department. Thank you. And we've got some refreshments out here if you'd like to partake. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you.